Carol had a question on part of the, and I like the way you say bituminous, is that it? The cost, it mentions in the note here that a lot of the cost overrun was due to the contractor applying more asphalt mix than staff estimated. I was just curious how that works, and I have no idea how it works, but do they just arbitrarily pick what they want to put down, or is there some standards they're supposed to be within?
It's not arbitrary, but normally what we will do when we have a resurfacing contract, in this case we had like a $500,000 budget, we will pick the streets that we feel should be our biggest priorities and try to, we have to estimate what we're going to, what kind of cost we're going to be seeing. We try to be a little below the budget so that we'll have a little bit of room as things come up during the resurfacing that we can make adjustments to maybe improve drainage or that sort of thing. In this case, we had the town hall parking lot. We had some very flat spots out there, and in order to introduce some slope, you don't want to go thin with your asphalt. You have to go thicker. And so, you know, we overran a good bit here at the town hall parking lot, but we did make some pretty good improvements to the way the parking lot drains. We also, on some of our streets, they don't have an awful lot of cross slope to them. It's better to introduce a cross slope if you can, and we did that. We thought we had plenty of room to do that and still stay within our budget. And unfortunately, we got a little high there, and then we got hit with the bituminous index, which added another $9,200. So we wind up with a total cost for our resurfacing of $515,000 when we were trying to stay under the $500,000. So it's a combination of things that happen, but it's not a matter of the contractor just arbitrarily saying, I want to put down more. I mean, we have to make sure that they don't do that, because believe me, they'll put it down as thick as you'll let them.
That's my impression, yeah.
Right. Well, if we're getting paid by the cubic yard, I'm sure they will. If we're getting paid by the square feet, they'll put it down as thin as they can possibly get
right.
it. So,
and that kind of comes up with resurfacing. You know, when you're building a street, if like a developer will obtain prices based on square yards, then we're out there making sure they put down enough asphalt. When we're resurfacing, we pay by the ton, and so we're out there trying to keep them from putting down too much. It's funny how that works, but the incentives are different.
but I do have a question, which is real similar to Alderman Elliott's. In the middle of the paragraph, it says, in some cases, this is simply a matter of having set the equipment higher than necessary to obtain the minimum 1.5-inch thickness. So if I was a contractor and I was getting paid by the ton, you know, and it's supposed to be 1.5 inches thick, and I set it to 1 3/4, I've all of a sudden picked up a pretty significant percentage of added asphalt.
So it adds up pretty quickly.
Yeah. So I can see, you know, if we want to raise the slope and do some contouring for drainage, or if we want to crown the street, but if they just put it down thicker than the spec called for, I'd say that's their baby, and they should eat that. I wouldn't.
That's what we try to keep an eye on and make sure that they don't do. Of course, when they're rolling it, you know, they don't screed it out with and put it down at 1.5 inches thick.
Right.
They put it out at 1 3/4 to 2 inches, and depending on the mix, when you roll it, you want to be at 1.5 inches when you're through rolling it.
Finished compacted.
Once it's compacted, it's kind of a balancing act. And this is the first time in 11 contracts that we've gone over like this, but it does happen.
How much, and I read this stuff last night, read myself to sleep with it, but how much...
it's pretty dull.
Yeah, chloroform in print, as Mark Twain would say. But, and I understand the bituminous index, and, we don't have any control over what the Arabs are charging us for petroleum, but this, what percentage of it would be just their pouring it on too thick? For no other reason than because they know exactly what that'll compact to and how much
They know pretty closely, yes, but I would say most of it is due to improvements in the slope. I mean, we had some pretty significant overruns over at the, well, here in the parking lot and over at McPhee Road, where we had to do the same thing. We had to mill out a little bit more than we'd planned. I mean, that's a small area, but, you know, I would say for the most part, it was adjustments that we agreed to make.
For the most part, but we're talking, what's the total overage? From 476 to 515?
Right, it's 39,000.
I would be inclined to, I mean, it's real tempting just to pay whatever bill somebody submits to you, and I have concrete contractors who like to charge by the cubic yard instead of by the square foot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, it always takes more concrete when you're doing it that way. So I would be real tempted to adjust that final payment slightly, just to kind of send a message that, hey, you know, we're paying for 1.5 inch asphalt, not 1 3/4 inch.
Well, we do have the tickets. I mean, I know that they did put the asphalt down. I understand what you're saying. And, but like I said, for the most part, it's due to adjustments that we made as they went. I'm not sure how to adjust a payment.
It's always uncomfortable when people bill you for more than what you anticipated. I know.
Oh, yeah.
I hate it when people do that. But by the same token, even for the most part, I mean, even if you know, 40 or 50,000 of it was stuff that we benefited from,
Right.
that we requested, and so forth.
Well, it is important to note that the way we bid these contracts, the way we put them together, where we're paying by the ton, the incentive for the contractor is to put down more than what we ask for.
Absolutely.
However, if we err, it's probably going to be on the side of having too much.
Right.
Too much is much better than not enough.
I agree.
So they did put the asphalt down.
We got the asphalt on our street.
Exactly. So we wind up with a little bit better product than we asked for.
But we pay for it.
But we have to pay for it. Exactly. If it were the other way around and it was too thin, we'd have a real problem.
Absolutely. They'd be back putting some more down.
Exactly.
Well, I'm just curious how often this occurs, because if we come in under budget, we don't have a bump in the bituminous index or something like that, and we come in under budget, then nobody ever notices, or it's not really an issue. But
Well, as I said, this is my 11th year here, and it's the first time that we've run over our budget on resurfacing, and we've been close most times. But with the bituminous index, I mean, that, and I mean, we knew that we were putting down more than just the 1.5 inches. But we felt pretty comfortable up until just the last couple of days there, and then we realized that the bituminous index had hit us pretty hard.
right, I understand that. Maybe I didn't express myself clearly, or as clearly as I would like. When we don't have the bituminous index bump us up over our budget limit, how often in those 11 years have they been over on their tonnage as compared to the square footage of pavement that we're doing at a given thickness?
It's
Well,
always been within the budget.
Well, that's what I'm
But
saying.
it's-
We could
but
be
it's-
within the budget, but they could still be
Yeah.
overcharged us $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a year. We wouldn't
Yes,
know it if it was.
it's typically it will be a little above it. Like I said, we want it to start below our budget amount, and as we see things that we can improve along the way, we'll try to stay certainly within the budget, but make those improvements as we go.
Right.
So probably in most cases, we have put down a little bit more than just the 1.5 or 2 3/4 inches of asphalt. But you'll typically find some places that you'll want to increase a cross slope just to improve the drainage.
Sure.
This same company, a few years ago, they resurfaced in Brochart, on Brochart Boulevard in Fox Run, and it had almost no cross slope. And they were able to put a 2% cross slope in, and it drains much better, and it should last a good bit longer because they were able to do that.
Right.
But yes, that does come at a cost.
Right, and I understand that, but I'm still not getting the answer that I'm looking for. Is what percentage of this overage is just excess tonnage that they're pouring on there that we're not necessarily requesting?
Probably very little of it. I mean, it's I'm sure there's some, but we don't go through and measure it from location to location. That would be very difficult to keep up with and be very accurate with it.
Well, but we have certain standards, and that's just their industry standards to stay within a given tonnage for a given area.
Right.
We know there's going to be a little bit of irregularity, but I'm just curious in those 11 years that you're familiar with, how much of that. I'm just kind of curious to know what's going on out there, and are we getting padded consistently, and are we just bumping our budget up?
Typically, no. No, it's usually very predictable. In this case, we were trying to stay just within the budget, and well, we almost made that. We missed it by a few $1,000s on a $500,000 contract, and then we got a $9,200 bump with the bituminous index. Sometimes it can be hard to balance.
Thank you.
Just out of curiosity, do you ever get a credit from the bituminous index if it goes down, or is there a base to be?
It's set to give us a credit if it does go down.
I'm just curious. Thank you.
We may see that next year. I would like to think so.
Bottom line here is that we are passing an ordinance for a budget amendment, and it's near the end of 2011 budget cycle, so this is just cleaning up loose ends. Should I read the ordinance? Is everybody okay? You've read this ordinance. All it does is move some money around.
I was kind of curious. I'm trying to understand this, so if y'all will bear with me. We got the Willow Creek. Okay, the Everett Road right-of-way. Is this a surprise? Why are we? I'm just trying to understand why that's not. We didn't have that in the last. We didn't know this was going to happen, or what's? Why are we passing this into? Why are we having to change the budget for this?
You mean to answer it, or you want to?